So this is a question I get, not so much online, but I get it a lot in person, and that's, how do you go outdoors by yourself? I'm too scared to do that. And I get this question in person often enough, I felt like it'd be a good idea to make a video about it, because I feel like there's even more people that either are too nervous to ask someone or don't have anyone to ask. So I'm going to start small with some tips on like how to go out into nature for your first time ever by yourself, and work up to some bigger things like how to go on your first solo camping trip by yourself. My number one biggest trip for going solo outdoors is to start small. I did not decide one day I was going to do a 20-mile day hike by myself. I started off with just going on some solo trail runs by myself because I didn't have anyone to go running with and I didn't want to run on the roads. So I started by myself because I didn't have anyone to start exploring the trails with, but if you do have someone that you can convince to go out with you, then I suggest starting there. You'll likely be more comfortable if you start going out on trails with someone you know, and then go on those same trails by yourself since you're already familiar with them. So like I mentioned, the first time I went out on trail running, I went by myself because I didn't have any runner friends. But the first time I went paddleboarding, I went with my boyfriend because that felt a little less intimidating. Another tip is to start local so it's easier to come home if you are uncomfortable. You're not going to want to drive like 2 hours to some epic trail and then turn around partway before you made it to your destination. Trust me, I've done it. It's hard. But if you like go to your local park, it's much easier to turn around and go home if things aren't going well for whatever reason. It's also much easier to commit to because it'll take significantly less time and effort. So if it is possible, I suggest starting with a trail you've already been to. If there aren't any local places you've been to, or you're looking for the next step in to go somewhere new, I suggest looking at recent reviews for the trail. All Trails is a great option for this. People will often list if there's any safety concerns for any reason. Also, the amount of reviews will give you an idea of how popular the area is. So once you've picked your trail and you're ready to head out, make sure to check the weather beforehand. If you're somewhere like in the mountains, sudden thunderstorms are pretty common, so you'll want to be aware of what you're getting into. There is a saying, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. And while that is true, if you're new to this, there's a good chance you don't have the good clothing yet, which is totally fine. You don't need the most expensive gear to get started. You actually need very little to get started, but you do want to wear clothing that's appropriate for the conditions you'll be in, and understand that once you start moving, you'll warm up a bit. And also, if you are moving and then stop, say to get a snack or take in a view, you'll also probably get colder then. But if it's like 13 degrees out like it is here today, you're going to want to have something that is insulating. Or wait till a warmer day. My next tip is to give yourself permission to turn around early if things aren't going well. Giving yourself this permission will make it feel a little less intimidating because you know if things aren't going well, you can just leave. But this tip isn't just for beginners. This is something I still do today if for whatever reason things feel unsafe, whether that's weather related, the trail's more technical than I thought, or just bad vibes or bad people around. What I personally run into now is that the trail that I'm doing is more technical than I feel comfortable attempting by myself. If I had had someone else here, I may have tried it, but by myself it wasn't worth the risk. There are a few things to remember for your first time going out by yourself. You're going to want to always let someone know where you're going to be, how long you expect to be gone, and who to contact if they don't hear from you. You're also going to want to have some kind of emergency communication plan. When you're just starting out, I suggest sticking to trails that have cell service and bringing a charged phone with you. As you gain experience and comfort, you can bring something like this. This is a satellite communication device, so I can call for help even if I don't have service or my phone broke or whatever. You should also be familiar with the 10 essentials and leave no trace principles. The 10 essentials are navigation, sun protection, insulation, illumination, first aid supplies, fire, repair kit and tools, nutrition, hydration, and emergency shelter. So I'm definitely not saying you need to bring like a tent or like a 50-liter pack fully loaded out for your 1-mile hike around your local park. But understand what the 10 essentials are, and that as you get into bigger adventures and adventures that are further off the beaten path and more isolated, there is a bigger chance that you will be out for longer than you thought. Something could happen that would make you spend an unexpected night out in the woods. And that list is pretty specific to hiking. If you're doing other activities, you will need other safety gear. For example, if you're going paddling, you'll need a PFD. If you're going mountain biking, you'll need a bike helmet. But all this stuff does no good if you don't know how to use it, so make sure to become familiar with all of your gear. And the 10 essentials are a minimum. You can bring whatever else will help you feel safe and is legal where you are. Bear spray, for example, is a pretty common precaution in grizzly bear territory, but it's banned in Yosemite. Onto the leave no trace principles. They are plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly being key here, leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts, respect wildlife, and be considerate of others. So now on to some camping specific tips. If you're new to camping, whether that be solo or with others, I am planning to do a whole how to plan your first camping trip, so be sure to subscribe if you're interested in that. So this is a tip that is relatively small, but I feel like it makes a big impact, especially for your first solo camping trip, and that's to listen to the surrounding noises during the daylight. I promise you that squirrel is so much louder than you think it is. Pretty much every animal that moves in the woods sounds about 10 times louder at night. I found that raccoons sound like they're the size of a human, and generally if you try and make noise to scare them away, they will call your bluff and be back in less than 5 minutes. Repeatedly.
I think that might be the worst night of sleep I've ever gotten camping.
Another tip is to pick a campsite with whatever amenities you feel are necessary to make you feel comfortable. Things like cell service, Wi-Fi, and hot showers aren't at every campsite, but you can definitely find campsites that have those things. And along the same lines of choosing a local trail for your first time, choose a local campsite for your first time. At this point, I usually go camping because there's something that I want to do that is further than a day trip away. But by all means, when you're first starting out, go to the local state park that's like 20 minutes down the road, or whatever's closest. There's comfort in knowing that you can just drive home if things aren't going well. If you get uncomfortable and can't sleep at night, just drive home and then come back the next day to get your stuff. It's no big deal. And know that you took a big first step in trying something new. So my next tip is also about campsite location. It's a little more difficult in my opinion, but something I still do if I can, and that's pick a site next to a river. I just really like hearing the sound of a river at night, but it also helps to drown out some of that background noise, so you're not paying attention to all those tiny little noises that are happening around you, but you can still hear if there is a big noise. Related to that, some people highly suggest wearing earplugs at night. That's not for me. I don't like feeling like I can't hear what's going on around me, so earplugs aren't for me, but they may help you. So next, be familiar with your gear before heading out. Set up your tent at home. Don't wait till you're at camp to try setting it up for the first time. If you're going from camping with others to solo camping for the first time, you may already be familiar with your gear, but if you've never camped and are going from like big day hikes to solo camping, please be sure to check out your gear beforehand. And this is true even for experienced campers. When you get a new tent, you should always check it out at home beforehand. So something to keep in mind is not confidence and then activity, it's activity and then confidence. You still want to start small to build your confidence and understand your skill set. You don't want to like just jump in and get in way over your head and end up hurt, but it is a process and it won't start without action first. You have to do something that makes you a little nervous in order to grow. So at this point, I prefer to go trail running or hiking by myself because I can set my own pace. I can take as many snack breaks as I want, take as many videos of salamanders, but I can also speed up when I want to. But with that being said, it's still nice to have others with you sometimes. I am very glad I had my boyfriend with me on Mount Fuji. That was quite hard, and it was nice to have someone else going through the same thing. As you gain experience, you can move on to things like making your own routes, which I can make a whole other video on that if you're interested, just let me know. But when you're first getting started, stick with established trails, and All Trails is a great source for things like that. You can just put in whatever area you're looking at and sort by distance or elevation gain, or you can just not put in any filters and let it show you what's highest rated. I would love for you to put your tips for going solo outdoors down below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to be always adventuring.